Like I said on Monday, though, I wouldn't be keeping you that long today. Um, but I do want to just show you, just to give you some pointers on putting this practice together. And then once you submit your practice, I'll look at it and then we'll have another discussion, just in light of, the work that you all did on this one. But if you remember, like Monday, when I showed you that eval sheet, all right. Remember those early categories, okay? Response to the prompt, again, make sure you have a good understanding of what you're being asked to do. And really it's just about comparison. All right. But I think once you have an understanding of what you're being asked to do, the main thing after that is organization. All right. Organization, like I said, is going to be everything, for this practice. All right. And sharing a document. This is not on D2L just yet, but I will post it. The reason I'm not posting it yet is um these are just some example paragraphs that are like really specific to the article that you have. So I want to save some of this for after you've done your own. But the first thing I want to show you in this document, okay, and this is just a few paragraphs, has an intro, couple body paragraphs, and a conclusion. But main thing I want to show you is this introduction. Okay. And if you remember, from your common essay, right, what an introduction entails or what an introduction should include, again, it's the same traits, right? Same characteristics. Attention grabber, background, thesis statement. Okay. So I think, it's for us, at this stage in the semester, it's time to start thinking or making those associations, right? Meaning when you have to do an introduction, start thinking in those terms: attention grabber, background, thesis statement. All right. Because no matter what you're writing about, no matter what, okay, when you're putting an essay together, no matter if it's a comparison essay, an argument essay, a personal narrative, well, personal narratives can be a little bit different, but a causal analysis or a cause and effect essay, if you're just analyzing something, whatever, okay, no matter what you do, your introduction is going to need those three elements: attention grabber, background, thesis statement. All right. So I think if we make a mental note, or even if we write that down, um so when you guys are doing your own practice essay, you can kind of check it against that. You can look at your own intro and say, well, did I start with an attention grabber? Do I have enough background? And again, background is just answering that question: what does the reader need to know? Right? You aren't going into that much detail for your intro. Just, what do they need to know? It's like think about your introduction in a literal sense. You're just introducing ideas, right? You're not going into that much detail. Okay. And then your thesis statement. What's the main idea of your essay? And again, remember, your thesis statement serves two purposes, right? Or two main purposes. One, it states the main idea of your paper for your reader, but it also gives you, the writer, a way to stay organized. Because now, it's back to our discussion with the common essay. Once you have this thesis statement, it's like, okay, here's the idea that has to be supported in this essay. All right. And really, it kind of takes the burden off of you as a writer when you really think about it, because it's like saying, okay, I don't have to discuss everything in the book, or everything in the book in this article. I just have to discuss this connection that I made in my thesis statement. All right. Now, for your final assessment, and you can practice this in your in the practice assessment. All right, your thesis statement just has to make a connection between the two pieces. Again, you know, as reviewers, we understand that, you know, this is somewhat of one of those like pressurized assignments, if you will, you know, especially if we were doing it in a timed format. So just make sure you have a thesis statement that expresses the main idea. Like if we look at this one, all right, actually, let me start at the beginning of this thing with the attention grabber. And as you can see, you know, this attention grabber and with yours, right? I, I think sometimes people have like this misconception of attention grabbers that it has to be this, I don't know, like this traffic stopping or this jaw dropping statement. You know, you can start with a quote, as some of you did, in a good way, you know, on your common essays. Okay, so use some of those skills, you know, that you've been accumulating. Okay, and this one, you know, it just kind of a relatable statement. Maybe there's some interesting statistic, you know, that you came up with or that you discovered. All right. Oh, let me back up a little bit. Okay. Um, for your for this and especially your actual final assessment, do not use anything that you got from the internet. Okay. If we were doing this in class, like in a classroom, the internet would be disabled for, or we used to be able to disable the internet. They OCC doesn't provide that. We used to use this thing called Synchronize, but that's another story. But you would not be able to use the internet, you know, if we were in class. So don't use the internet for anything. All you need is the book, any notes that you've taken, you know, maybe you have a dictionary or something. All right. And if in class we use the old school dictionaries because we don't we don't allow students to look stuff up online for just for this final assessment though. But you can use all that stuff, just no internet. So don't go searching around the internet for like quotes and things like that. Also, don't cite anything from an article you found online. And definitely for this assignment, for your final, especially for your real final assessment, I will have the assignment folder, you know, configured so you can see your Turnitin percentage, but make sure that stays, try to keep it under 15%, but try not to exceed 20%. All right. And if you don't know, you should know what I'm talking about right now because you've turned in a lot of assignments this semester, but the Turnitin percentage is that like the bar with the number in it near your, when you turn in an assignment. All right. And it goes from yellow. No, it goes from green to blue to yellow to orange and red. Okay. If you're in the yellow, you know, that might be significant. And I'm saying this because plagiarism, and you know, plagiarism, I just, before I say what I'm about to say, let me say this. Plagiarism has not been an issue in any form in this class, in this section. All right. And you guys' class. So no, this isn't aimed at anybody. All right. But plagiarism is an automatic failure of this final assessment and probably an automatic failure of the class. All right, again, haven't had an issue with that in the semester, but I just want to throw it out there. All right, and to be honest, it's been you know, I've had to deal with students who plagiarize before, you know, and a lot of times it just comes from, you know, students being in panic mode. It doesn't, most of the time it's not really a reflection of who they are. It's just that sometimes people just panic and, you know, do things that they normally wouldn't. All right. So I said all that to say this. Start with an attention grabber. Okay. But you know, don't spend like hours and hours and hours trying to figure out the perfect one. Like this one. Oppression in its many forms has been around for much of recorded history. Okay. That's it. All right. Nothing spectacular. Because really, you know, for your assessment, um, for your assessment, for your real assessment, your main job is like getting through it. Okay. Getting through it. So, don't waste time trying to think of like this quote unquote perfect attention grabber. Just go. Just go. Okay. And then some background. All right. So I have this statement about oppression, and then, just a little bit of explanation of that. Again, just getting my reader involved in the discussion. Okay. And just answering that question. What do they need to know? How can I get them ready for what I'm about to discuss? Or uh, something you all can do, start thinking specifically. All right. Because your final, your practice final, all right, is about the Jim Crow era in the United States and apartheid South Africa. Okay. What do those eras have in common? They were both oppressive systems. Okay. So you can sort of like meditate, or you can reflect, on those commonalities before you even get into the specifics of, the book and the article themselves. Generations of one group dominating others is part of the human story. In recent history, South Africa has experienced its own brand of oppression, apartheid. Okay. When I say recent history, I'm kind of oldish. So recent for me is the 80s. Apartheid was a legal system of segregation and oppression that kept whites on top of the social order and blacks on the bottom. So now, what do they need to know about apartheid? It's right here. Okay. Now, do they need to know like the specifics of it? What year it began, what year it ended? Nelson Mandela campaigned against it. All of that is valid information, but you don't need it right here. Okay. You want to be maybe a little bit general in your in your intro, even though I just said let's start being more specific. Right. All right. Decades before apartheid divided South Africa, the United States had developed a system of oppression to keep blacks down and out. Following emancipation, Jim Crow laws served the same purpose as South African apartheid. All right. So when I say background, all right, or like context, just a line or two about apartheid, line or two about Jim Crow South. All right. And everything, you don't have to become an expert on now. In your, like, for me, this is interesting stuff and interesting history. So, it's stuff I try to be educated in. But, if for this essay, you don't have to become like everything you need to know for this essay, like everything you need to know about apartheid can come from Born to Crime. And everything you need to know about Jim Crow, can come from the article. Now, that's not the full story, of course. And if you want to keep pursuing that, you can, on a personal level. But for this essay, we're fine with our sources. Okay. So again, don't think you have to start doing like this extensive research, on these two periods. However, if you want to do it just for personal growth and to fill in some gaps in your knowledge, that's great. I always encourage that. All right. It's just good to be good to learn world history. Okay. Good to learn world history. All right. Now, now we're starting to get a little bit more specific, but again, when you talk about each source, just like in your comment essay, you want the title and author of each source in your intro. Title and author of each source should be, excuse me, in your intro. Okay. Very short synopsis of each, though. Trevor Noah's Born to Crime details the struggles endured by blacks living under apartheid in South Africa, while David Pilgrim's What Was Jim Crow discusses how Jim Crow affected the lives of blacks in the United States. That's it. Okay. Not talking about Patricia, not talking about Soweto, not talking about, specific policies of Jim Crow. Um, not doing any of that in my intro. Okay. Think about it like this. When you meet someone, right, and you introduce yourself, Do you tell them everything about yourself, you know, in that first initial meeting? Or do you just introduce yourself and then, you know, get to know a person, or let that person get to know you over time? All right. Our essays are the same way. We're just introducing ideas in our introduction paragraph, but our body paragraphs is where our body paragraphs are where that's when we go detail. That's when we start including specific examples. All right. So if you notice in this intro, title, author of both, and just like brief synopsis, it's one sentence. Okay. One sentence. All right. And now for your thesis statement, do not say there are many similarities and differences between Jim Crow America and apartheid South Africa. Don't say many similarities and differences. Okay. And just moving forward, if you're, and this is like for any class, if your thesis statement like contains phrases like many ways or many whatever, many differences, this has blank has had many effects, that's too vague for a thesis statement. Because as a reader and then as a teacher, when I'm meeting with these students, my first question is like, what do you mean many ways? And I say, don't say things like many ways, because that can mean anything. All right. Although there are minor differences between apartheid and Jim Crow, Noah's and Pilgrim's text both show that these two systems of legalized oppression have much in common. Okay. So instead of saying, you know, many ways, try to be specific. Okay. Try to be specific as, you know, as you can. Okay. Now, I'm not going to show you the body paragraphs just yet. So I'm going to skip down, and actually I'm going to post a version of this document to our D2L page, but just I'm going to get rid of some stuff, and I'll go over the body paragraphs um once we've, or excuse me, once you all have done your practice. All right. But here's what I can say about the body of your essay. And we'll once you do a draft, or once you do your practice and we have a discussion about it, I will show you this in more detail. But a good way to organize the body of an essay of this nature, and you know, if you look at the prompts, right? Discuss similarity and differences. Okay. When you have to take like an essay exam, or even when you get an essay prompt, when you see discuss similarities and differences, that's asking you, okay, comparison. All right. So essentially you're writing a comparison essay. All right. And there's a great way to keep comparison essays organized, and it's called the alternating pattern. Okay. Meaning you just alternate paragraphs where you have a book paragraph, article paragraph, book paragraph, article paragraph. The catch is whatever you talk about in the book, follow it up. Talk about the same thing. Just use an example from the article. Okay. I'm just going to read the topic sentence of each paragraph. Apartheid was designed to keep blacks and whites segregated in South Africa, and one of the ways this separation was accomplished was by forbidding interracial relationships. So if you're, I know you remember from the book, right? The reason Trevor Noah was born a crime, right? You know, mom was Xhosa, you know, dad was Swiss, right? So these unions, you know, were outlawed, right? So I'm going to discuss an example from Born a Crime, showing the illegality of these interracial unions. Now, If I'm using the alternating method, I'm going to discuss the same thing, how interracial relationships were forbidden in the Jim Crow system in the very next paragraph, right? So here, apartheid, interracial relationships forbidden. Next paragraph, Jim Crow, how interracial relationships are forbidden. And then my next body paragraph after this one, it'll be my next point of comparison. You get what I'm saying? So whatever you talk about in the book, talk about that same point as it relates to the article, right? And that's a good way to keep your essay balanced. Don't try to talk about book and article in the same paragraph, all right? Because you're going to have underdeveloped examples. Okay, so again, topic sense, and this we'll talk about this when we go back over these paragraphs in detail. But you know, these paragraphs use the pie method too. All right. So apartheid was designed to keep blacks and whites segregated in South Africa. And one of the ways this separation was accomplished was by forbidding interracial relationships. Example from Born a Crime. Similar to apartheid, Jim Crow prevented blacks and whites from interacting with each other, with one another. All right. So talks about the same issue. So that's that. This is something you can do. Oh, do you want better? This is your brainstorm, right? And you're getting them together. Okay. I'm just gonna do it generically right here, but you can do actual ideas. All right. Okay. Maybe you get like 3 ideas for your thesis statement. 3, you know, 3 potential thesis statements. Maybe you get 2, you know, maybe you just get 1, you know, that you're gonna roll with because you're confident in it. That's fine. But it's like I was saying on Monday, try to do this work, you know, beforehand. Really, you know, read the article, take your notes, and then, you know, do some separate notes. Okay. And then all right. Oh, duh. What am I trying to say? We'll just say housing discrimination. But what I really mean is um both Jim Crow and apartheid sort of dictated where a person could live based on the color of their skin. Okay. Now let's just say this is your brainstorm, right? And you know, you could keep this list going because you know, back to when we were talking about writing process at the very end of the semester, you know, one thing that was said was, you know, sometimes we don't even use all of the ideas we come up with when we're brainstorming, but you know, it's always best to come up with more ideas, you know, than you're actually going to use. It's like when people say you go camping, right? When they say like when you think you got enough firewood, you know, go get 10 more bundles. It's the same thing when you're brainstorming, right? Try to come up with more ideas, you know, that you'll actually use. But to be honest, you know, this is a paper right here. Okay. So if you look at this is 1, 2, 3 paragraphs. And if you take this stuff out, here's our conclusion. So really, there's just like one point of comparison here, and we're almost at the end, right? We're almost at 3 pages. So You know, like 3 points of comparison, that's plenty for this essay. And I think you should settle maybe on a few of them, because that will allow you to develop your examples. Okay. Instead of, you know, trying to discuss like every little thing or every little similarity, um, you know, you'll have like underdeveloped paragraphs that way. Okay. And you know, again, like I was saying, you know, use the strategies we've been using for your comment essay to develop these paragraphs. Okay. Use the pie method. Okay. And then, you know, if we take it all the way back to our discussion about paragraphs, you know, unity, right? One idea per paragraph. So whatever whatever's in that topic sentence, that's the idea you're locked into for that paragraph. All right. So like if we have these two paragraphs about you know, interracial unions, when we start our next section, we're going back to apartheid now. All right. So if this is a topic sentence for my next paragraph after the ones about, you know, interracial bonds, okay, I'm following that same pattern, right? Example from Born a Crime. And then the next paragraph, show how Jim Crow did this, okay? And so on and so forth. So I know Monday, I told you guys a story about my old student, Muhammad. You know, this was many books ago. I don't even remember what book we were using at the time. But you know, he had all these points. He had all these points hashed out. All right. And you know, it was handwritten, you know, in class, but you know, he had, you know, examples, you know, from our you know, from the book we were using at the time. So, you know, try to get some stuff done, you know, before you commit to writing the essay. Okay. And now here's the I'm gonna get rid of the paragraphs and stuff until you all have taken your practice, and then I'll post it, but I will get this bottom half of it posted. Okay. And these are just some strategies or some pointers or some things to remember. And you could have this out, you know, while you're doing your assessment. That's the thing that, you know, we don't allow you all to use the internet for your final in class, but we do allow like any notes, right? It's very much open note, open book, right? You know, in the classroom, we always say like you can use anything, any resource except for the internet and the person next to you. But other than that, you know, if you've taken some extensive notes, if you've written some thesis statements down, if you've even handwritten a draft, right, you can use all that. Okay, you can use all that, and you can definitely use this. And I will, when you do your real assessment, I will also give you sort of I'll call it a cheat sheet, but it's not really a cheat sheet. It's just guided. But just like I have an MLA document to just remind you like how to use signal phrases and, you know, cite your material and such. All right. Also, you can, you know, even though, right, the article you're reading for your actual impromptu is going to be different from this one. You know, you can have these paragraphs out, you know, as guidance, you know, just reminders. But again, you know, make them your own. Definitely that. Okay. Intro. Start with an attention grabber. Hook them. Hook them into your discussion. All right. Start with the attention grabber. Short quote. You for this essay, you definitely don't want to quote that's more than a couple lines, but really like a line would do it. Okay. Short quote, very short. Okay. Because you don't want that to take up too much of your intro. Right. And you all know, right? I'm not really big on paragraphs being like a set amount of sentences, right? But you see this intro, like if we take out our heading and all that, it's about a quarter of the page. So it's not extra long. Okay. And that's how intro should be. Again, think of you introducing yourself, right? Okay. Like what if you met somebody in like the very first conversation they told you their entire life story. Okay. I don't know if there would be a second date after that. Oh, okay. So yeah, short quote. Interesting fact. Okay. Interesting fact. Statistic. Provocative statement. Provocative statement is just something that's going to get your reader to think. All right. And it's a statement that it's going to be a little bit controversial, but you're going to like speak to it throughout the paper. Okay. What you don't want to do though is start off with have you ever. Okay. And really like moving forward, if you're in the habit of doing that, try your best to break that habit. Okay. Don't start your papers with have you ever. And that's not for this class and moving forward to your other classes. Don't start with have you ever. It doesn't even matter how you finish that sentence. Okay, don't start like that. Same thing with like, did you know? Like, did you know there was a system of apartheid in South Africa? Don't start like that. You know, always start like this. Okay, start one of these. Okay, or start like this. Something relatable, right? Statements like this are good because they just keep you going. Okay, especially when, excuse me, you have to get something in a given amount of time. All right, statements like this, it gets the ball rolling. Okay, and then provide some background or some context, and that means you know you can either like it can be a continuation of the way you began, like this one, right? Oppression in its many forms, and then it kind of gets a little bit more specific about apartheid and the Jim Crow South. All right. But again, this shouldn't be that long either. 2 to 4 sentences. That's it. You don't need to retell the book, the article. You don't need to give like an in-depth history. You're just keeping it brief. All right. Give your readers enough information to be part of yes. Okay. Because on some level, even if your reader knows, don't assume they know what you know. Like I always say DARK, like dark. Don't assume reader knows. So don't assume your reader knows what you know. Okay. So maybe you just want to give them a line or two about apartheid and the Jim Crow period in the US. But nothing too detailed for your intro. This can be accomplished in 2 to 4 sentences. Okay. If you find yourself kind of going, scale it back a little bit. Again, take it back to that original question. What does the reader need to know? What do they need to know? Okay. Definitely do this. Title and author of each source. Okay. So make sure you include the title and author of each source. Again, you have to do that in your introduction. You have to. Okay. And book titles are italicized, but put article titles in quotation marks. Okay. Book titles are italicized. And, we, I think I mentioned this before in this class, but to italicize something, you could just hit this thing, this crooked eye. All right. Or you can, or you could just highlight your text and then just hold down Control and I. It switches it back and forth. All right. So there's a couple ways to do it. And article titles go in quotation marks. Make sure you're capitalizing properly as well. Okay. Capitalize every word, in the book title, except words like a, of, like short words. And same thing with article titles. But and I say that sometimes it just comes from like text talking. Okay, because we're used to, and I know we don't, I know I don't really care about capitalization, in texts, but we kind of have to do a little bit of code switching in that way, where we have to get ourselves out of the texting mindset when we're writing in this in this arena. All right. So it's just, be mindful of things like that. And I'm saying that because if you do it in an essay, your teacher's probably going to say, hey, make sure you proofread for capitalization. But if you do it in a cover letter, or maybe you're transferring and you have to write, a letter to an admissions office, if you do it there, you're probably not going to get the results, that you want. So it's just about practicing. And to be honest, I've had students who will say like, hey, Norwood, can you I'm transferring, next semester. Can you go over my letter with me? Yeah, let me see a draft. And, capitalization issues. And I'm like, man, we got to work on this. All right. So it's really just kind of being mindful, right? Or just kind of being present, or thinking about what you're doing, like as you're doing it. Okay. Or, going back, like, did I capitalize everything? Okay. Title and author. And then most importantly, boom, thesis statement. Thesis statement. End of your intro. Must be there. Okay. First thing we look at, all right, as reviewers. First thing we look at, gives your paper direction, right? Gives you direction as a writer, because you're saying like, I know what I have to discuss, in my paper. I know what my readers are expecting of me, or I know what my readers are expecting to hear. So here's what I'm going to talk about. Boom. All right. And I keep saying this, but it's a good strategy. Come up with a few beforehand. Okay. After you read the article, after you do a little bit of reflecting on the book, maybe you look back at your maybe you look back at your annotations from your book. Um, but yeah, try to make sure that's clearly stated. And for this essay, just some insider tip, keep it simple when it comes to your thesis statement. Okay. Doesn't have to be some overly complex statement. Okay. Clearly state your main idea. Try to avoid many ways. Okay. Oh, don't say things like this either. Apartheid and South Africa were similar but different. Okay. Don't make statements like that in your essay. They were similar but different. Okay. Try to be specific. Okay. Minor differences between apartheid and Jim Crow. Noah's and Pilgrim's text both show that these two systems of legalized oppression have much in common. So this statement sort of said they're similar but different, but didn't use those words. Okay, and then there's more specifics. All right. Now, time is okay. I said I wouldn't keep you long, but I'm keeping you long. All right. All right. No, not too much more. Okay. Um, the body of your essay. Okay. Try using the alternating pattern. All right. And I will give you more, more details about that once you've put your essay together. But yeah, try using that alternating pattern. Or sometimes it's called like a point by point pattern. All right. You got a point from the book, same point from the article, right? And just keep alternating your paper like that. Okay. But pie method, point, information, explanation, or just topic sentence, relevant supporting details. That's it. When you're discussing an example, all right, when you're discussing an example from the text, what does the reader need to know? Same deal with same skill that you were using in your comment essay, right? Same skill set. Okay. What blanks are you going to need to fill in when you put an example in your paper, right? What's the reader need to know? Okay. So start with that topic sentence and then stick with it. And try to be specific in your topic sentence. Like, apartheid, forbade, you know, interracial unions. Okay. Specific, right? Um, housing discrimination. Jim Crow, determined, or apartheid determined, where a person could live. Example from Born to Crime. Example, showing how Jim Crow. You know, think about legal system. Okay, whatever. Okay, whatever examples you want to discuss in your essay, just do them like one per paragraph, and then start with the topic sentence. Okay, topic sentence, relevant supporting details. Don't put any of that filler stuff in your essay. Okay. Try to it's same thing with your comment essay, right? Try to avoid like that personal commentary. Okay. Of course, Jim Crow and apartheid were unfair. But you don't have to say, I thought that was really unfair how blank blankety blank happened. Okay. So try to avoid, personal commentary. Okay. Just keep it relevant to, what you're being asked to do. Okay. Keep it relevant to what you're being asked to do. Okay. Practice using transitions. And this is ongoing practice. You're going to keep practicing this when you get to 1510. And this is something like the more you do it, really, and this is the case of most things in writing. The more you do it, the more normal it's going to become, or the more normal it's going to start to feel to you. Okay. But a lot of you are already, using transitions in a great way. Okay. This is one of the key things. This is something we'll be looking at kind of closely when we look at your essays. Body paragraphs should not contain multiple ideas. Okay. So, if you're talking about how Jim Crow severely limited, I don't know, people's rights or Black people's rights to right to education. Don't start talking about housing and other things in that paragraph. Just keep it limited to whatever's in your topic sentence. Okay. Keep it limited to whatever's in your topic sentence. And then finally, people always like chuckle a little bit when I say this in class, but this really happens. It happens more than students would think it happens. And sometimes, maybe it's a panic mode thing, or maybe a person didn't do the reading. Um, Two things, and these two things are gonna maybe sound like they clash a little bit. But when you're reading your book, I mean, when you're doing your work, your essay, okay, you can assume that your reader has not read the book, okay, because you're asking those questions, right? What does the reader need to know? So you can assume they have not read the book. Okay. The other side of that is everybody who's reading your essay has read the book, probably multiple times. So it's going to be apparent, if a student mentions something that did not happen. Okay. But it does. Students sometimes try to fill up their paper and they just make up stuff. Okay. Topic, sentence, relevant supporting details. Okay. Or the pie method: point, information, explanation. All right. And then, wrap it up. All right, wrap it up. Okay, let's wrap it up neatly. All right, you didn't see this conclusion up here, but it's here. All right. And this one is just 4 or 5 sentences. All right. 4 or 5 sentences, just reinforcing. Okay, here's the last line. Trevor Noah's and David Pilgrim's writings serve as reminders of a tragic past that people are in danger of repeating if racism is not addressed in a meaningful way. All right. So, the conclusion just kind of reiterates, what you've been saying throughout your essay. It reiterates, not restates, right? Reiterates, you're just saying it differently, but restating is, sometimes you're just like copy paste stuff in your in your conclusion is what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah, just wrap it up. Okay. Don't make any new points in your conclusion. Make sure your conclusion sounds like a conclusion too. Don't make it sound like another body paragraph, because then your reader is going to be expecting a conclusion. Okay, where you wrap it up. Don't go book review, in your conclusion. Like, I love this book, or I hated this book, or I learned so much from this book, or the article. That's great. I'm happy. That you had, that enrichment, from reading these pieces, but don't you know don't do that in your conclusion. Okay? Give them a sense of closure. Okay? And then here's what you don't want to do. Okay, I will definitely get this posted. Okay, and please, 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 okay, please have this out, or within reach, or somewhere, or in the back of your mind somewhere, because these are things that you don't want to be doing as a writer, but you definitely don't want to be doing it on your final assessment. Okay. Don't have phrases like, this semester we read a book called. Okay, you don't need to say that. Okay, everybody knows the book you read. Okay, that's one thing you can that's one thing you can assume. Okay, so you don't have to announce, right, that that you read the book. And all this stuff, from this list is stuff that we see in essays. Okay. We read a book called, I learned blah, 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 blah. I never would have believed that, blah, 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 blah could happen. Don't need any of that. Okay. Just keep it focused on the prompt. Okay. Keep it focused on the prompt. All right. Same thing with, like, I think, I feel, I believe, in my opinion, I thought, I never knew. No, avoid those. Okay. Avoid those statements. One, um, the further you go in writing, in academic writing, I would say first person point of view is discouraged. Like, I, me, we, us, our. Like, first person is discouraged. So it's just good to start practicing, getting that out of your writing vocabulary. Sometimes it's allowed, but like for me in my classes, 1510, 1520, it depends on the assignment, but I definitely let my students know ahead of time, first person point of view is not cool for this assignment, or first person point of view is acceptable for this assignment. Hold on 1 second. And my dog likes to dig her nails into the floor, man. like somebody scratching a chalkboard. Okay. So yeah, like I feel, in my opinion, just remember, in academic writing, nobody cares what you think or how you feel or what you believe or about your opinions. Okay. Of course, your teachers do. I just say that nobody cares, but really your audience wants to know like what you can support. Like it's cool, if this is what you think, but show me the receipts, right? Show me what you can support. Okay. So don't don't I think it, I feel it, in my opinion, it, whatever. Okay, don't do any of that. Also, discuss, don't put your, and it just goes back to what I was saying about personal commentary. Don't put your feelings in there. Okay. It's good, right, that you engage in the book like that. And there was some pretty emotional things in the book, especially what happens between Patricia and Abel. All right. But statements like this have no place in your final assessment. I felt it was unfair for Trevor not to be able to see his father. Okay. Instead of saying I think it was unfair, you can say, apartheid prevented, Trevor from having a relationship with his father during his childhood. But like how you felt about that, it's important. But it just doesn't have a place in this essay. All right. Avoid being too conversational too. Like, let me show you. Okay. Or, anyway, right. Back to what I was talking about. Okay. You know what I'm saying. Try to avoid things like that in your essay. Meaning like don't talk to your audience directly. Don't address them directly. Try to avoid announcements. And this is for any essay. This is the stuff teachers talk about, like things that our students sometimes do that we don't really we aren't too fond of. All right, but avoid announcement thesis statements. This essay will be about. This essay will show. Okay, after this essay, you will see. Okay, now let's make a statement. Okay, meaning if you're gonna say this essay will be about, instead of I guess telling them what it's about, show them. Let's make a statement. Okay, minor differences between apartheid and Jim Crow, but the text show that these two systems have much in common. Okay? So avoid this. Okay. Yeah, underdeveloped examples. Um, look back at the common essay example paragraphs, or look at your own common essay. Okay. A lot of the comments that I wrote, on essays were, good paragraph. That may be one of the comments on the side. And it's a good strategy for writers to use paragraphs as a model. Like if you have a paragraph and you're really happy with the way that paragraph turned out, let that be your model, for your next paragraphs. Okay. But when I say underdeveloped examples, if you think about the example we discussed, several weeks ago about Patricia, throwing Trevor and Andrew out of the car, just like exposing them to a little bit of danger to keep them out of real danger, or mortal danger, I would say. Okay. So when you're discussing an example, think about what your reader needs to know in order to understand that. One, if I'm talking about, Patricia throwing Trevor and Andrew out of the car, the reader's going to need to know like why they're in that minibus and why it's dangerous. Okay. But other than that, they want to know more, they can read the book. Okay. So what do they need to know to understand your example? Okay. Don't just put quotes in your paper because you need them. Make sure they're relevant to the example you're using, or to the point you're making. Also, a good way to get yourself prepared for this is to go back in your book, especially after you read the article about Jim Crow. Go back in your book and either look at your annotations, or just kind of thumb through it and try to find good quotes. ahead of time. Okay. So if you're doing something like this, I'm just gonna make this up. All right, I don't know for sure if that is on page 23, but I just made it up. But maybe there's a quote you want to use on page 23. Okay, 43. Okay, page 100, whatever. All right, but in your notes, right, that you're taking now, these aren't notes that you're taking on the article. These will be notes that you're taking for yourself. All right, or you can do this on the article if you want, since you'll be keeping the article this time. But try to make that as specific as you can. Okay.
Are we sorry,
No, go ahead.
are we annotating the article and turning that into, or is it just the
Yes,
essay?
the
Oh,
the
okay.
article is part of the assessment. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yep. So what I was saying, John, is I definitely want you to take notes on the article. But if you want to just take some separate notes for yourself to help you out when you put your essay together, just get your points of comparison together. How? Two birds, right? Let me get my article up here. The article is a Word document. So if you just come down here to this empty space, okay, sorry, that's not double space, folks. All right, but if you just come down here to this empty space, boom. Oops, where's my stuff? Okay, here we go. Okay, you can put your blueprint down here. That's cool. All right, or you can do it on a separate sheet. That's up to you. All right, or you don't have to do this. Okay, you do have to annotate the article, but you don't have to do this. But I think if you want to put yourself in a good position to succeed um, on this assessment, I think like getting yourself organized beforehand can only benefit you. Okay, especially if you're um, like if you get writer's block or you get stuck. It happens to everybody. But if you get writer's block or you get stuck, go back here. Okay, go back here. If you're thinking of a point that you want to make, you're right. Go back to your notes. Yeah. Um, these kind of go together. Okay. Make sure you're using signal phrases. Pilgrim writes, that's our author's name of the article, and then Noah writes. Okay. And I think we're starting to get a good understanding of that, which is a great thing. Okay. So this is something that's I want you to keep practicing. But what's going to be different about this essay from our common essay is it's going to be author's last name every time, or author's last name, page number every time for the book, and then just the author's last name for the article. Okay, and I'm saying that because you're using multiple sources, so make sure you use the author's last name, page number. Again, for the article, don't worry about the page numbers, and that's just a rule like for you all moving forward. If something doesn't have page numbers, don't insert them. Okay, just use the author's last name. And then using the pie method will help you avoid this. Okay. Don't start or end paragraphs with quotes. Okay. And then if you have a quote, or also like within your paragraphs, don't do back-to-back quotes. Okay. Always separate quotes with their own words. And really, we're talking about habits. Another good habit to form, as a writer is when you have a quote, the habit should be like following that quote up in your own words. Okay. And when you're thinking about, or when you're looking back at your paragraphs, and this could be a revision thing or a proofreading thing, but when you're going back to look at your own paragraphs, make sure the majority of words are your own original wording. Remember, quotes should be like a very small part of a paragraph. Okay, but the majority of it should be you kind of crafting that paragraph. You can even use the quote like you can build around the quote, if you will. Okay. So always follow up with quotes. Okay. And then finally, this is I said, 2 page or 2.5 pages is not an auto fail for the impromptu. Typos are not an auto fail. Here are some things that are auto fails. Plagiarism. Okay. Plagiarism, the reviewer is gonna fail you off top. Okay. And they probably aren't gonna like sometimes a reviewer will like if somebody looking at like my students' portfolios, I'm usually right there so they can ask me questions about the student. But in cases of plagiarism, they don't it's just an auto fail. Okay. And then another one is like summarizing. If you summarize the book and the article. Okay. Summarizing isn't analyzing. Okay. But as I said for your comment essay, you're going to need to fill in some blanks. So it could seem like summarizing, but when I say don't retell the book, meaning like don't just start from when Trevor was a kid and then end with the Daily Show, or end with the Abel situation in the aftermath of that. Okay. Okay. How do you avoid summarizing? Relevant details. Okay. How do I determine what details? Look back at your topic sentence. How do I determine what topic sentences to use for my paragraphs? Look back at your thesis statement. Okay. So all the parts of your paper should be working together. Okay. It's great unity of all these parts. All right. Makes a great paper. Again, it's like a sandwich, man. All that stuff comes together. Okay. Might not even eat a piece of bread by itself, but when you put it on a sandwich, it's good. Okay. Now, so don't retell the book. You will need to do some summarizing to explain an example you're using or to support a point, but don't summarize the whole book. Don't merely tell the reader what each source is about. Like, don't say what happened. Okay, don't say what happened if it's not relevant. And then this is just the stuff we were just working on. All right. So now here's the deal, my good people. Okay. First things first. If you haven't finished your common essay, get that out of the way first. Okay. Get that out of the way first. And get busy. Okay. Going back to our discussion on Monday, first thing when you begin your assessment, read the directions. Read the directions, make sure you have an understanding of what you're being asked to do. Read the article, annotate it, same way you annotated your midterm, if you choose. Okay. When you do your real assessment, I will give you a brainstorm sheet that you can use or not use. But for this one, let's just say, you build your own, brainstorm sheet. That's fine. Okay. That's all I got, good people. Have at it. Okay. Monday we'll have another quick meeting where I will talk about our reflective letter, but I know you guys are still going to be in final assessment mode, so I'll make sure I set the date, in a and then just looking at our calendar real quick before we get up. Yeah, 6. Then our semester. I'm just looking at when this class officially ends. 01, the 3rd. Yeah, so we'll do our actual assessment the week of the week of the 19th. Okay, so it will become available for you the 19th, and then you'll have to the 23rd to do it. I don't want to roll this into the weekend. All right, because I want to look at them over the weekend. All right, so whatever you got to do, man, with your job, right, with the kids, with whoever, just make sure you have like some time. Week of the 19th. Okay, there's going to be an article, and there's going to be an essay. But for now, okay, let's get our final assessment in by the date. Okay, I think I put the 7th on the assignment folder.
What was the 19th? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
final.
when we're going to do our real assessment. The real
Oh,
final.
okay.
Yep. So, and then we're 26th, that's our review week. And then usually, you know, I will I let students know where they stand like right after the review. So you won't be in suspense too long. All right. So yeah, folks, that's that, you know. And if you look, man, we're just about at the end of the semester. Okay.
Went by fast.
It did, man. It did. But this is the last thing. This is the last thing. I know I said the last thing about five things ago. But Monday, right? We went over our checklist. Make sure that you can check off all of the necessary items. Right now, common essay, instructor chosen essay, all of that should be wrapped up. If you're still working on your common essay, that's cool, but you know, get that wrapped up as soon as you can. Midterms done. Instructor chosen reading strategy is done. That's just reading questions or one of these articles. And so really all we have left is the final, or excuse me, the reflective letter in our final assessment. All right, that's where we should be as a class. Okay, so if you weren't in our session Monday, you know, get your checklist out and, you know, see where you are. Okay, and if you aren't where you need to be, you know, get at me by email. Okay, so that's that, folks, for real this time.
Alrighty, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, so have a good weekend, my good people. Okay, be safe, man. And something I said Monday, right? You know, we're at the end, so you know, find that extra gear, man, to help you cross the finish line strong. All right, almost there, but you know, we still have a couple more hurdles. All right.